I've always believed that individual education and knowledge is key. When you look at this image, what do you see? I don't know about you, but I see a baby. I see a human, much like a little astronaut, an astronaut of the womb. I see this little baby. You see, I don't have any political affiliation. I've left politics behind. I don't even have a religious affiliation any longer. But the one thing that I do have is I have an open, free-thinking mind. I think that allows me to see things from day to day, year to year, a little differently. If you would have asked me even just a few years ago what I thought about abortion, I would have chimed in with my pro-choice chant. I am ashamed to admit that I hadn't really researched the topic as much as I should have. It's a very complex issue, but yet it's very simple. For me now, it is very simple. I believe in life. My idea of pro-choice back in the day was that I felt like it wasn't right for me. I would never choose abortion, but I always felt like it wasn't my right to tell another woman what to do. And to a certain extent, I still believe that, although I do not believe any longer in the idea that a baby should be aborted based on a certain stage of development. Because after having done a lot of research, I have found out that the embryo begins looking like a baby a lot sooner than I thought. For instance, there's a really good video by a Swedish photographer. The name is, I think his name is Linnert Nillson. He's a Swedish photographer, and he captured some amazing photographs of the development of a fetus developing in the womb. And this, believe it or not, is a baby at just 5 weeks. This little human being, it has eyes, it's developing ears, it has arms and legs, it's got a little heart in its chest that's beating, blood is running through. There's no question in my mind, no doubt about it. To me, that's life, that's a baby. I think what is happening, and it's maddening to me, is the lack of knowledge and education that's given to women and girls about what the process is of abortion, how it's performed, what happens to the embryo, what happens to the baby. I feel like the answer is in educating young girls and women as to what the stages of development are, so they can understand what their baby looks like at the stage in which it's allowed for it to be aborted and to be killed. And I really had no understanding of the horrific practice that's being done across this country. And look, I know completely well that we are overpopulated on this planet. But that's not what this is about. This is about right and wrong. This is about life and death. This is about something that I've learned that is so unbelievably heinous and barbaric that I can't even wrap my mind around how these doctors who have taken their oath to protect are able to do these horrific things that they do in order to kill this life. I had no idea that a lot of times these babies are extracted through processes that literally rip them apart piece by piece. And I don't want to be horrific to you, but I think it's necessary. You have to understand. In this country, we're appalled and disturbed and outraged by serial killers that kill women, children, men, boys, girls, that they kill other human beings in such horrific ways. We're appalled and disgusted. Well, why is there such a large percentage of us that are not appalled and disgusted and outraged by the practice of inducing a metal instrument with clamps on the end that has teeth into a woman's womb to pull a baby, a living being, out of her piece by piece? There is an interview with a doctor, I think. I'd have to look up the name of the doctor, and I'll put a link in this video, that explains how that practice is done. And literally he pulls that living baby, living in the womb, out piece by piece. What more horrific thing can you imagine? That's serial killer stuff there. He pulls that baby out piece by piece, limb by limb, and counts the limbs. He even talked about how if there's a white oozing that comes out, that's the baby's brain, and that he would know then that he needs to also pick out pieces of the skull. This is grisly, horrific horror movie stuff. This is done every day to women. There's other practices that are just as heinous. The practice of inducing saline into the woman's, into the baby in the womb, that literally burns the baby from the inside out. And it's not a quick process. This little being, this little life, before it's even had a chance, is killed slowly, very slowly. We wouldn't do that to our worst enemy. We wouldn't do that to a dog or a cat. Yet it's allowed to be done to a baby. We have humane society laws that protect animals from abuse, and yet this is allowed. I am totally beyond heartsickened by the knowledge of this. I wish I didn't know now, but I'm glad that I do, because I do believe education is key. I believe reaching people to give them a better understanding. It's not just as cut and dry as it's a woman's body, it's a woman's choice. We're talking about murder. We're talking about a little life living inside of someone. They have a right too. They have a choice. They have a right eventually. Why don't they have a right now? This practice is heinous. The practice of the saline introduction sometimes fails. Sometimes the baby is born and then it has a lot of developmental issues. It can be born handicapped. There's plenty of examples online of failed abortion attempts that have left the baby living. And sometimes if the baby is born and the abortion attempt fails, they're ordered to put the little baby in a bucket of formaldehyde and let it just die in there. Sometimes if it doesn't die and its will is strong, the doctor will snip its spinal cord or cut off its oxygen in one way or another, killing the baby. That is murder. I'm sorry, plain and simple. However you put it, that is murder. If you're someone who is listening to this video and you don't understand this process, if you don't understand the development of a baby, of how early on it begins to look like a baby, please, please do your research. I'll provide links. Please get in there and look, educate yourself. Don't fail yourself like I've failed myself by not knowing. Have a look at this little life, this little human being. It is beyond comprehension how anyone could destroy that. I'm reminded of this writing. It was written, I think, in the late 30s. I'll provide a link to that as well. The writing is called The Desiderata. And there's a line in the Desiderata that says, "You are of the universe, no less than the trees or the stars. You have a right to be here."